Okay, hello. Hello, world. I'm trying something new today. My name is Ned. My motorcycle is a Honda Pan European, or here in North America they call it the st1300. I wish they had called it the Pan American here, rather than the st1300, which is a little bit more boring and antiseptic, but it's an excellent motorcycle, V4, 1261 cc's of Honda V4 engine power, fuel injected. Lovely bike. The one thing that I would say is wrong with it is its gearing. It doesn't have a sixth gear, so that when you're cruising at 110 kph on the highway, you're almost at 4,000 RPM. And so the fuel mileage is nowhere near as good as it could get. But because it's shaft drive, it's very difficult to change the gearing ratio. Anyhow, other than that, it's a fantastic bike. And I've had it, this is my fourth year owning an st1300. And I used to think that the weight was an issue because it's not a light bike. It's called a sport touring bike, but really I prefer to say it's a hybrid of a touring sport cruiser, or a sport cruiser touring, because it's really its sitting position as well as its weight puts it a bit beyond the sport touring category, in my opinion. But again, I used to think the weight was a little bit too much. I would have liked a lighter weight. However, you know, here in Canada now, a lot of our highways are 110 kph for the maximum. So people, realistically, you'll get a lot of people driving 125, 130. I try and, for fuel mileage and for safety nowadays, I try and ride 115 to 120. I don't push it over that very much anymore. I'm not a young pup like I used to be, so I'm not filled with piss and vinegar, so to speak. So I have no need to really push it, and plus I don't want to risk a ticket. But the weight actually is really nice when you're putting miles behind you on the highway, because it gives you so much more stability, especially in windy conditions, but even in non-windy conditions, you just feel like you're so much more stable. And other things that are really great about the bike is its windscreen is amazing. It's electric on all except for the earlier models. They had a non-electric option for the windscreen. And so you can raise it up to the top of my helmet level. And a lot of people who ride this bike don't even know that the windshield has two hardware settings, where you can set it to a high hardware setting or a low hardware setting. And by doing that, you can adjust it, I think, about 3 inches. So for people who are taller in the trunk, and or just tall in general, like I'm a 6-foot tall guy, but my legs are really short. Well, not really short, but my legs are short compared to my trunk and my neck. So I like to say I'm 6'2" from the waist up, and I'm 5'10" from the waist down. But the point is, my head sticks up tall. So even for tall guys on this bike, you can get the screen up and fully cover your head for either wind protection, and it's like this quiet cocoon where you're protected from the wind and from the noise on the highway, or from rain protection if you're riding in the rain. The other thing is the design of the mirrors is really quite, I think, sporty and elegant, and protects your hands from wind and rain. And the fairings are wonderful. They protect your knees from wind and rain. So unless it's a ridiculously heavy rain, as long as you're moving forward at anything faster than 50 or 60 kph, even when it's raining, you don't get very wet. So yeah, fantastic bike, and with a pillion passenger enjoying the ride with you, it's really quite fantastic. So yeah, what else can I say about this bike? There's a few idiosyncrasies about the bike that you should know if you're going to own it. A lot of people, a lot of quote-unquote pro shops, and I've had some bad experiences in my local pro shops where they put in the wrong shape spark plugs, the wrong gap spark plugs, and one guy who finally I got in touch with, who's an expert on these bikes, he used to manage and maintain police with these bikes. He told me that the guys, they could have destroyed my engine. So anyway, they screwed that up, and I had them do some work to check the valves, the valve clearances. And anyhow, they didn't screw on the airbox properly, so one of the throttle bodies was leaking in air, unfiltered air, and the engine was surging. So they really screwed up, and they put on a new tire for me, and they didn't seal the tire properly, and it kept leaking air, and so I had 3,500 kilometers out of a back tire, and it died because it kept losing air and was riding on low air. It wouldn't hold air for more than a day properly. But anyway, the point is, there's a few idiosyncrasies about this bike, and I recommend that anyone who owns this bike just get some basic tools and learn how to do most of the stuff yourself. The oil changes are pretty darn easy. The brake jobs are easy. There's a good website called st1300.com, but you got to be careful because there's some poison personalities on there. And also some of the instruction, there's some guys that know a whole bunch, but some of the tutorials that are posted there that you can download, they're overly detailed. And here I am passing another bike, smaller bike, Yamaha V-Star. And anyhow, some of the guys are overly detailed, and it just gives guys like me who are new at repair, it takes your focus from the main basic points that you need to be focusing on and throwing them to other points, and leaves you more room for making mistakes, and it's a lot of redundancy. You can say that again. So just be careful if you do look on stowners.com. There's a lot of really good people there, but there's some poison characters, so be careful about that. And be careful, you don't need to get overly detailed, just learn the heart of it. So one of the interesting things about this bike is it has a very, I think it's fair to say it's a fairly complex linked braking system. So if you use the front brakes or if you use the back brakes, you're never activating only the front brake or the back brake. But the way that they blend from front brake to back brake and back brake to front brake is different. So the back brake, for example, each of the calipers, there's three rotors, two on the front and one on the back, brake rotors. And each of the calipers has three pistons. The back brake, when you activate it, it activates, I think it's the center piston in the rear and the two outer pistons on the front. But then once the front brakes activate, it moves forward this lever bracket that the left front brake caliper is on, and that also has another master cylinder in it. They call it the secondary master cylinder, and when that pushes forward, it's like squeezing your brake pedal or pushing down your brake pedal or squeezing your brake lever, and what it ends up doing is it puts in more power to the rear brakes, and it activates the two outer pistons on the rear brake. And the reason they designed it this way is to try and help prevent front brake plunge when you use the front brake. So if you use the front brake alone, you're going to activate the secondary master cylinder, which will activate two of the pistons, the outer two pistons, in the rear brake. And that helps it from plunging the suspension on the front. So it's really quite an ingenious but complex system, and because of that, there's also a what do they call it, a differential balance valve, or I forget exactly what it's called, but there's a balance regulator that also has a bleeder, a brake fluid bleeder on it, and that's underneath the fairing of the right side. So there's 7 different bleeders on the motorcycle to bleed and refresh your brake fluid, and you have to do it in a certain order. Otherwise, you won't get the brakes bled and flushed properly. As well, the secondary master cylinder, if you do not change your brake fluid, especially if you don't change your brake fluid often enough, it can get clogged and not release its fluid properly, and then what can happen is it can lock the back brakes, or it can prevent the back brakes from releasing fully. So you always have some rubbing on the back brake, which heats up your back brake rotor, and some people have had some fractures and breaks in the back brake rotor, as well as worst case scenarios, if your brakes freeze up totally, you could get yourself into a life-changing or life-ending accident. So you got to be really careful. Learn how to do the brake bleeding yourself. Myself, a guy who I'm pretty skilled at doing things. I build guitars, amongst other things. But I was extremely intimidated about doing maintenance on this vehicle because I'm afraid of trying new things, I guess. Intimidation, psychological paralyzation. But once I learned how to do it, it's actually not that difficult at all. You just want to get a collection of the correct tools so you can do it properly without too much cussing. And so, yeah, there's the brakes. You want to definitely learn how to do that yourself, because your local pro shops, there's a good chance they're not going to know how to do it properly. Other maintenance, just learn how to do it on Facebook forums and on the st-owners.com. It's st-owners.com website. There's, like I say, there's a lot of good information. You can learn a lot, but there's a few more idiosyncrasies about the bike. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. But yeah, it runs like a dream and fantastic. Nice bike. So I can't compare it to the Yamaha. I can compare it to the Kawasaki, the Concourse 1400, which I rode for a test drive. And I was thinking about turning this one in and getting the Kawasaki. And I actually also owned, for 2 weeks, I owned a really nice condition BMW R1250, it was an R1200 RT, I think. And the R1200 RT BMW, I loved the fact that it had built-in cruise control, electronic cruise control. And I liked the fact that its fuel efficiency was much better than this vehicle. But it's like riding an adventure bike on the road. It was sitting really tall up. You didn't feel like it had any fun in the turns. Its plastic fairing, plain and simple, it really sucked. It shook around, vibrated from left to right, and it had a U-shaped scoop out of the top of it, so even at the highest position, wind was hitting my face and rain would hit my face. So what an absolutely horrible design for a windscreen. And sure, you can get an aftermarket, but still, one would hope that they would have put on a proper windscreen to begin with. And then it had some extra wind deflectors on the mirrors, and those wind deflectors kept making a terrible whistling noise anywhere over like 65, 70 kilometers an hour, and they were plastic and felt really cheap, thin plastic. So, yeah, also I can say that the shape of the hand grips on that motorcycle, the BMW, the shape of the hand grips were really uncomfortable. They weren't just cylindrical, they were kind of, they had different diameters, so towards your thumb and your forefinger, they had a very narrow diameter, and then it widened for like your ring finger, and then it started to narrow again, and I just found them absolutely uncomfortable. And the seat was so soft. You know, one thing about a soft seat is you sit on it, and for the first 5 minutes it feels great. 10 minutes later you're okay. 15 minutes later, it's eaten into your butt crack. And I mean, if you want your butt crack eaten all day long, yeah, get a nice soft seat like that. But the seat really kind of sucked. Now, mentioning about seats, one thing about this Honda st1300 that's a regular complaint by owners is the stock seat. It's not so much that the seat itself is a bad design and bad materials. It's actually good, but the angle of it is such that it's angled forward, so it pushes your crotch forward into the gas tank, and so your man parts gets pushed, and it's not so comfortable. But there's some modifications, and I have another YouTube video actually where I put a modification on the YouTube video, and it's an easy mod to do that levels off the stock seat, and now I don't have any problem with the stock seat at all, and I have no desire to buy an aftermarket seat because I can be here pretty much all day. You know, any seat, if you're sitting on it for 8 to 10 hours a day, you're going to get a little bit butt sore, but yeah, you can easily make some, there's one super simple, and then there's one simple but extra step where you got to drill a couple holes, take out a couple cotter pins, take out two I don't know what you call them, lugs, and replace them into the new holes they drill. But either of those simple modifications makes the stock seat extremely usable, extremely comfortable, and good for all-day riding. So I guess that's all I'll say. No, I wanted to say about the Kawasaki. The Kawasaki, it has a 6th gear. So the Kawasaki at 3,000 RPM goes 110 kilometers per hour. I'm going, let me see. I'm going about 115 now, and I'm at 4,000, just about 4,000. Yeah, 4,000 gets me exactly to 115,000 K. So for 3,000 RPM on this motorbike, 3,000 RPM gets me only to like 85 kilometers per hour, I think. And this motorcycle engine actually has more torque at 3,000 RPM than the Kawasaki does. So there's no need for Honda to have designed it for such high RPM at highway speed. But anyway, what can you do? It is what it is. I'm looking into a machine shop that might be able to design me a new ring gear and what you call it, spiral gear and ring gear or something like that. Anyhow, that's another story. So, yeah, the Kawasaki was geared much better. But, yeah, to get the power on the Kawasaki, you had to really get into high revs, whereas this thing, once you're at about 2,500 to 2,700 RPM, you've got so much torque, and you've got a lot of your power, and it's just, like, you can do these long acceleration rolls in a single gear, and for me, it's much more enjoyable on this bike than the Kawasaki. I know other people report that the Kawasaki just has a lot more grunt and a lot more power, but yeah, you might need to get up to 7,000 RPM, 7,500, 8,000 RPM on that bike to get your power, whereas this one, you got 8,400 RPM to the red line. That one, I think, was 10,500 RPM to the red line, if I can remember properly. And so, you know, different designed engines. I like vanilla ice cream and butterscotch ice cream. You might like chocolate and Neapolitan and whatever, you know. So neither is right, neither is wrong, but I really got to say, this engine is just really to die for. I just wish I could, I still hope I'm going to be able to get the gearing changed, because that will make this motorcycle PDP, pretty darn perfect. And Kawasaki, what else can I say? Yeah, the sitting position, I mean, the seat, yeah, it didn't have anything better to offer than this motorbike did. Its windscreen didn't have anything better to offer than this did. I like the looks of the Kawasaki, and it was the nice Kawasaki bright lime green, the one that I took for a test drive, which I think is a really, really lovely looking motorcycle. It looks fly. It really looks awesome, and it might attract more looks than this black, the dark shadow that I'm riding right now. But anyhow, there's some thoughts on the Honda st1300 Pan American. Maybe I should get some stickers made up called Pan American and put it on the bike. But right now I have shark stickers, like from one of the American early World War II fighter planes that has the shark teeth on it and eyes. So I thought those stickers on my motorcycle, so it's sharky. Looks pretty good. And anyway, it's riding the Pan American st1300 Pan European Honda V4 engine, 1261 cc's of V4 pure joy and excitement. And there's some other thoughts about the R1200 RT or R1250 RT, I can't remember what it was that I had, and about the Kawasaki Concourse 1400, which is also, like I say, it's a great bike, and it might be a lovely bike for you. But yeah, I really got to say, the BMW thing, that wasn't the sport touring. Plus, I think it looks really fugly. But that's just me. Anyway, peace out. Hope you enjoy your day. Have a blessed day, and God bless the world. Right now, we're in tough times with Israel trying to take over the Middle East and destroy Iran. But I think we're about ready to say goodbye to Israel right now. So that's all. Over and out. Peace out.